The morning sun filtered through the glass windows of a bustling bank in downtown Los Angeles, casting golden streaks across the tiled floor. It was Monday, and like every other weekday, people were rushing in and out, some depositing checks, others withdrawing cash, all absorbed in their own worlds. Among them stood Sarah Thompson, a 32-year-old woman with Down syndrome, clutching her tote bag tightly as she made her way to the counter. Her floral dress swayed slightly with each step, and her face lit up with excitement. Today wasn't just another trip to the bank, it was special. Sarah had been working tirelessly on her handmade crafts business for months now. From knitting cozy scarves to stitching colorful coasters, she poured her heart into every piece. Each sale brought her closer to her dream of turning her passion into something bigger. This time, she held a small check in her hand, a payment, from a customer who loved her work, and she couldn't wait to deposit it. For Sarah, this wasn't just money. It was proof that her efforts mattered, that people appreciated what she created. As she approached the counter, she glanced around at the familiar surroundings. The bank wasn't new to her. She visited often enough to recognize the layout and even a few friendly faces among the staff. But today felt different. There was an unusual tension in the air, though she couldn't quite put her finger on why. Maybe it was the hurried footsteps of customers or the hushed tones of conversations happening behind her. Whatever it was, it left her feeling uneasy. When Sarah finally reached the front of the line, a young teller named Chloe greeted her with a forced smile. Chloe was new to the job, barely out of college, and still learning the ropes. She scanned Sarah quickly, taking note of her bright outfit and the slight hesitancy in her movements. To Chloe, Sarah seemed like any other customer, until she noticed how slowly Sarah pulled out her check and began filling out the deposit slip. "Hi," Sarah said softly, offering a warm smile as she slid the partially filled form toward Chloe. "I'm here to deposit this." Chloe nodded but didn't return the smile. Instead, she leaned over the counter, squinting at the paper. "You need to fill this out completely before I can process it," she said curtly, tapping her pen against the counter. Sarah nodded, unfazed by Chloe's tone. "Okay, thank you." She carefully picked up the pen again, trying her best to write neatly. But her hands trembled slightly, making it hard to stay within the lines. Numbers and letters sprawled unevenly across the page, and she paused frequently, double-checking her work. Every second felt heavier than the last as she sensed the growing impatience radiating from Chloe. Behind her, a few customers shuffled restlessly, glancing at their watches or scrolling through their phones. One man sighed audibly, muttering something about delays under his breath. Sarah tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the task at hand. She wanted to get it right, not just for herself, but because she knew how important accuracy was when dealing with money. But Chloe wasn't willing to wait. After several minutes of watching Sarah struggle, she let out an exaggerated sigh and rolled her eyes. "Come on," she muttered, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "It's not rocket science." Sarah froze, her cheeks flushing red. She looked up, startled, unsure if she'd heard correctly. When she saw the dismissive look on Chloe's face, her heart sank. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she blinked them back, determined not to cry in public. Still, the damage was done. The comment hung in the air like a dark cloud, drawing unwanted attention from everyone around her. A few customers exchanged uncomfortable glances, while others pretended not to notice. Some even smirked as if Chloe's rudeness was justified. Sarah felt smaller with each passing second, her confidence crumbling under the weight of judgmental stares. All she wanted was to finish her transaction and leave, but now it felt impossible. Every movement felt clumsy, every decision weighed down by shame. What made it worse was the realization that this wasn't the first time something like this had happened. Over the years, Sarah had grown accustomed to being treated differently because of her condition. People often underestimated her abilities or dismissed her contributions without giving her a chance. Yet, no matter how many times it occurred, it never got easier. Each encounter chipped away at her self-esteem, leaving scars that took time to heal. Despite the rising tide of humiliation, Sarah refused to give up. She took a deep breath, steadying her trembling hands, and continued filling out the form. Letter by letter, number by number, she worked through the task with quiet determination. If anything, Chloe's behavior only fueled her resolve to prove that she could do this, that she was capable just like anyone else. Unbeknownst to Sarah, however, fate was about to intervene in a way she never could have imagined. As she painstakingly completed the final details of the deposit slip, a figure entered the bank unnoticed by most. Little did anyone know, this stranger would soon change the course of the day, and perhaps Sarah's life, forever. As Sarah continued to painstakingly fill out the deposit slip, trying her best to ignore the growing tension around her, a soft creak echoed through the bank. The sound of the door opening went largely unnoticed by the busy crowd, but it carried with it a presence that would soon command everyone's attention. A man stepped inside, dressed casually in faded jeans, a simple white t-shirt and a well-worn leather jacket. His dark sunglasses shielded his eyes, and his scruffy beard gave him an effortlessly rugged look. To most people, he might have seemed like just another customer, but not to those who recognized him. It was Keanu Reeves. Keanu had been in Los Angeles for weeks, quietly going about his life after wrapping up filming for his latest movie. Known for his humility and down-to-earth personality, he rarely sought the spotlight unless absolutely necessary. Today, he was simply running errands, stopping by the bank to handle some personal matters before heading home. He hadn't expected anything unusual when he walked in. Banks were usually mundane places filled with routine transactions and polite exchanges. But as he moved further into the space, something caught his attention. From where he stood near the entrance, Keanu could see a young woman sitting at one of the counters. She looked flustered, her hands shaking slightly as she worked on a piece of paper. The teller across from her, a younger woman with a clipboard, seemed agitated, rolling her eyes and tapping her pen impatiently. Keanu frowned. Something about the scene felt off. He didn't know what was happening yet, but years of observing human behavior told him this wasn't a normal interaction. Curious, Keanu lingered for a moment, pretending to browse the pamphlets displayed on a nearby rack. From this angle, he could hear snippets of the conversation, or rather, the lack thereof. The teller's tone was clipped, almost condescending, while the young woman responded softly, her voice tinged with embarrassment. Keanu's instincts kicked in. He glanced around the room and noticed how other customers reacted. Some looked away awkwardly, others smirked, and a few even whispered among themselves. Whatever was unfolding here, it wasn't fair. Deciding he couldn't stay silent, Keanu approached the counter. As he got closer, he saw the young woman more clearly. Her floral dress was cheerful, her tote bag overflowing with colorful knitted items. Despite her obvious distress, there was a quiet dignity about her, a determination to keep going despite the odds stacked against her. Keanu felt a pang of admiration mixed with anger. No one deserved to be treated this way, especially not someone who was clearly putting in so much effort. "Excuse me," Keanu said, his deep voice cutting through the tense atmosphere like a knife. Everyone within earshot turned to look at him, including the teller, whose eyes widened in recognition. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. The murmurs died down, and all eyes shifted from Sarah to Keanu, then back again. The teller, Chloe, stammered, suddenly aware of the gravity of the situation. Sir?" she managed to say, her voice trembling. She had no idea who this man was, but his commanding presence alone made her nervous. "I asked if there's a problem here," Keanu repeated calmly, though his tone left no room for argument. He gestured towards Sarah, who looked up at him with wide, tear-filled eyes. "This woman is a customer, just like anyone else. If you can't treat her with basic respect, maybe you shouldn't be working here." The words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. Chloe's face flushed bright red and she fumbled with her clipboard, unsure of how to respond. Around them, whispers erupted among the other customers. Some nodded approvingly, while others gawked in disbelief. Keanu didn't care about their reactions. He only cared about making sure Sarah was treated fairly. Without waiting for Chloe to reply, Keanu turned his attention to Sarah. "Are you okay?" he asked gently, his voice softening. He crouched down slightly so he could meet her gaze directly, offering her a reassuring smile. "Do you need help finishing this?" Sarah blinked, stunned. She recognized him instantly. How could she not? Keanu Reeves was a household name, beloved for his roles in action movies and his reputation as one of Hollywood's nicest guys. Yet here he was, standing beside her, defending her when no one else had. It was overwhelming, surreal even. For a moment she forgot how to speak. I'm fine," she finally managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." Keanu nodded, his expression warm but resolute. "Let's get this sorted out, okay?" He reached for the deposit slip and examined it briefly. Though Sarah had done her best, it was clear she'd struggled with certain sections. Rather than pointing out the mistakes, Keanu simply guided her through them, explaining each step patiently. "Here, let's fix this part together," he said, pointing to a line where the numbers were smudged. "Does that make sense?" Sarah nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude wash over her. With Keanu's help, she quickly corrected the errors and handed the completed form back to Chloe, who accepted it without a word. The teller avoided eye contact, her earlier bravado completely gone. By now, the entire bank was watching. Phones were out, capturing bits of the exchange, while murmurs of excitement rippled through the crowd. Someone muttered, "Is that really Keanu Reeves?" Another replied, "Yeah, and he's sticking up for her." The energy in the room shifted dramatically, from judgmental and tense to supportive and curious. Keanu ignored the commotion, focusing solely on Sarah. Once the transaction was complete, he turned to the bank manager, who had hurried over upon realizing the celebrity in their midst. "This kind of behavior isn't acceptable," Keanu said firmly, gesturing toward Chloe. "You need to address it, not just for her sake, but for everyone who comes here. People deserve to be treated with dignity, regardless of who they are or what challenges they face." The manager, a middle-aged man with thinning hair and a nervous demeanor, nodded vigorously. "Of course, Mr. Reeves. We'll take immediate action. Please accept our sincerest apologies." Keanu didn't soften his stance. "Apologies aren't enough. Make sure your staff understands the importance of empathy and professionalism. That's the only way things will change." With that, Keanu turned back to Sarah, offering her a kind smile. "You handled yourself beautifully," he told her. "Don't let anyone make you feel small. You're amazing just the way you are." Sarah's lips quivered as she fought back tears, this time tears of relief and joy. "Thank you," she whispered, clutching her tote bag tightly. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Keanu replied with a grin. "Just keep shining, okay? The world needs more people like you." As Keanu stepped away from the counter, the room erupted into applause. Customers clapped and cheered, their earlier indifference replaced by admiration for both Sarah and the unexpected hero who had come to her aid. For Sarah, it was a moment of vindication, a reminder that she mattered, that her struggles were valid, and that kindness still existed in the world. But for Keanu, it was just another day of living by the principles he believed in. He didn't stick around for the accolades or the photo ops. Instead, he quietly finished his own banking tasks and prepared to leave, knowing he'd done what was right. Before walking out the door, however, he paused beside Sarah one last time. "If you ever need anything," he said softly, handing her a business card with his contact information scribbled on the back. "Don't hesitate to reach out, I mean it." And with that, Keanu disappeared into the bustling streets of Los Angeles, leaving behind a ripple effect of change that would resonate far beyond the walls of the bank. After the dramatic scene at the counter, the atmosphere in the bank shifted entirely. What had started as a tense and humiliating moment for Sarah transformed into something else entirely, something hopeful. Keanu's intervention didn't just stop with his words to the teller or the manager. It extended far beyond that. He stayed by Sarah's side, ensuring she felt supported and valued, even after the transaction was complete. As the applause from the crowd died down, Keanu turned to Sarah with genuine curiosity. "So," he began, his tone light and friendly, "what's in this bag of yours?" He gestured toward her tote, which was brimming with colorful knitted items, scarves, coasters, and even a few small blankets. Sarah hesitated for a moment, still processing everything that had just happened. But when she saw the warmth in Keanu's eyes, she relaxed. "These are some things I made," she said shyly, pulling out a bright blue scarf adorned with tiny yellow stars. "I like making crafts, it's my business." Keanu's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "Wow, you made all these yourself? That's incredible." He took the scarf from her hands, examining it closely. The craftsmanship was impressive. The stitches were neat, the colors vibrant, and the design unique. "This is really good work. Do you sell them?" Sarah nodded, her confidence growing with each word of encouragement. "Yes, I do. I've been selling them at local markets and online. People seem to like them." Her voice carried a hint of pride now, a stark contrast to the vulnerability she'd shown earlier. "That's amazing," Keanu said sincerely. "You're an entrepreneur. Not everyone has the courage to start their own business, but here you are, doing it your way. That takes guts." The compliment brought a smile to Sarah's face, lighting up her entire demeanor. For so long, she'd doubted herself, wondering if her efforts were good enough or if people truly appreciated her work. But hearing someone like Keanu, a man known worldwide for his humility and kindness, acknowledge her hard work meant more than she could put into words. Noticing the crowd beginning to disperse, Keanu suggested they step outside to continue their conversation. "Let me buy you a coffee," he offered. "We can talk more about your business. If you're okay with that, of course." Sarah hesitated again, unsure if accepting such an offer was appropriate. After all, Keanu was a famous actor and she was just herself. But there was something about him that put her at ease, as though fame hadn't changed who he was at his core. She nodded slowly. "Okay, thank you." Outside the bank, the air was crisp and refreshing, a welcome change from the stuffy interior. They found a cozy cafe across the street, its windows fogged slightly from the steam of freshly brewed coffee. Keanu held the door open for Sarah, letting her lead the way inside. As they settled into a quiet corner table, the barista recognized Keanu immediately, but he politely asked for privacy, explaining that he was catching up with a friend. Over cups of steaming coffee, Keanu listened intently as Sarah shared her story. She told him about how she'd always loved creating things with her hands ever since she was a child. Her mother had taught her how to knit, and over the years she'd honed her skills experimenting with different patterns and techniques. When she realized people enjoyed her creations, she decided to turn her passion into a small business. "It wasn't easy at first," Sarah admitted, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Some people didn't take me seriously because of my disability. They thought I couldn't handle running a business or managing money, but I proved them wrong. I learned how to use social media, set up an Etsy shop, and even started taking custom orders." Keanu leaned forward, clearly impressed. "That's incredible, Sarah. You've done so much on your own, and look at you now, running a successful business, inspiring others. You're showing the world that anything is possible if you put your mind to it." His words struck a chord deep within Sarah. Growing up, she'd often felt limited by other people's expectations. Teachers, classmates, even strangers would sometimes assume she couldn't achieve certain goals simply because of her condition. But sitting here with Keanu, she realized just how far she'd come and how much further she could go. "What's next for you?" Keanu asked, sipping his coffee. "Do you have any big dreams for your business?" Sarah thought for a moment before answering. "I want to grow it," she said confidently. "Maybe sell my products in stores or collaborate with other artists. I also want to teach knitting classes someday, to show others that they can create beautiful things too, no matter who they are." Keanu smiled, nodding enthusiastically. "That's a fantastic goal, and I think you're already well on your way. Your work speaks for itself. It's creative, thoughtful, and full of heart. People connect with that." Encouraged by his support, Sarah opened her tote bag and pulled out a few more items, spreading them across the table. There was a pair of mittens with intricate snowflake designs, a coaster set featuring geometric patterns, and a soft blanket woven with alternating shades of green and gold. Each piece was unique, reflecting Sarah's personality and creativity. "This one's my favorite," she said, holding up the blanket. "It took me weeks to finish, but I love how it turned out." Keanu ran his fingers over the fabric, marveling at the texture and detail. "This is stunning," he said. "You should be proud of yourself. These aren't just products, they're pieces of art." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, covering topics ranging from Sarah's inspirations to Keanu's own experiences with creativity and perseverance. Despite their vastly different lives, they found common ground in their shared belief in the power of hard work and kindness. By the time they finished their coffees, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose, as though the weight of doubt and insecurity had been lifted. Before leaving the cafe, Keanu handed Sarah a folded piece of paper. "Here's my number," he said. "If you ever need advice, help, or just someone to bounce ideas off of, don't hesitate to call. I mean it." Sarah stared at the paper, overwhelmed by his generosity. "Thank you, Mr. Reeves, for everything." Keanu chuckled softly. "Just Keanu, please. And don't thank me yet. You're the one doing all the hard work. Keep going, Sarah. The world needs more people like you." With that, he stood up, gave her a warm hug, and walked away, disappearing into the bustling streets of Los Angeles. But his impact lingered, not just in Sarah's heart, but in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed the events of that day. Through his actions, Keanu had shown that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark monumental change. And, for Sarah, it was the beginning of a new chapter filled with possibility and hope. The ripple effects of the incident at the bank began to spread far beyond what anyone could have anticipated. By the time Sarah and Keanu parted ways outside the cafe, word of what had happened was already making its way across social media. A bystander in the bank, someone who had witnessed Keanu standing up for Sarah, had discreetly recorded part of the confrontation on their phone. The video wasn't long, but it captured the essence of the moment. Chloe's dismissive behavior, Sarah's quiet determination, and Keanu's unwavering support. Within hours, the clip went viral. Shared thousands of times on platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, it quickly became a trending topic. Viewers were captivated not only by Keanu's intervention but also by Sarah's resilience. Comments flooded in from all corners of the internet, praising Keanu for his actions while expressing outrage over how Sarah had been treated. Hashtags like Stand with Sarah and Kindness Matters began trending, sparking conversations about accessibility, inclusivity, and the importance of treating everyone with respect. News outlets picked up the story almost immediately, turning it into a nationwide discussion. Headlines read, "Keanu Reeves stands up for woman with Down syndrome at bank," and "Actor's act of kindness sparks call for change." Journalists scrambled to interview witnesses, analyze the footage, and reach out to both Sarah and Keanu for statements. While Keanu remained characteristically private, choosing not to comment publicly, Sarah found herself thrust into the spotlight, a position she hadn't expected or sought. At first, Sarah felt overwhelmed by the sudden attention. Her phone buzzed nonstop with notifications from friends, family, and even strangers offering words of encouragement. Messages poured in from people sharing their own experiences of being mistreated because of disabilities or differences. Many thanked her for inspiring them to speak up and demand better treatment. Others expressed admiration for her courage and creativity, vowing to support her business. "It's a lot to take in," Sarah admitted during a phone call with her mother that evening. She sat cross-legged on her living room floor, surrounded by skeins of yarn and half-finished projects. Despite the whirlwind of emotions, there was a glimmer of excitement in her voice. "I never thought something like this would happen to me. I just wanted to deposit a check." Her mother, equally stunned but proud, reassured her. "You've always had a big heart, Sarah. People see that now. This is your chance to show the world what you're capable of." Meanwhile, the backlash against the bank, and specifically Chloe, intensified. Screenshots of the teller's dismissive remarks circulated widely, fueling public anger. Customers began canceling accounts, posting scathing reviews online, and calling for accountability. The pressure mounted until the bank issued an official statement apologizing for the incident and promising to implement changes. "We deeply regret the unacceptable behavior displayed by one of our employees," the statement read. "This does not reflect our values as an institution. We are committed to fostering an inclusive environment where every customer feels respected and valued." Chloe was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation, though many argued that this wasn't enough. Calls for systemic reform echoed across social media, with advocates urging the bank and other businesses to prioritize training programs focused on empathy, disability awareness, and customer service excellence. Some organizations specializing in disability rights reached out to the bank, offering resources and partnerships to help drive meaningful change. Amidst the chaos, Keanu continued to play a pivotal role, not by seeking the limelight but by quietly amplifying the conversation. Though he avoided interviews, he used his massive social media following to share posts about disability advocacy and inclusion. He highlighted stories of individuals overcoming adversity, promoted charities supporting people with disabilities, and encouraged his fans to educate themselves on these issues. One post in particular stood out. Accompanying a photo of him smiling warmly at Sarah during their coffee chat, Keanu wrote, "Meet Sarah, a talented artist, entrepreneur, and inspiration. Today, she reminded us all of the power of perseverance and kindness. Let's celebrate her achievements and commit to building a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. And be kind, create inclusion for all." The post garnered millions of likes and shares, further elevating Sarah's profile. Orders for her handmade crafts skyrocketed overnight. Her Etsy shop, which had previously seen steady but modest sales, was suddenly inundated with requests. Customers from around the globe praised her work, leaving glowing reviews and messages of support. One buyer wrote, "Your creations are beautiful, but your spirit is even more inspiring. Thank you for sharing your talent with the world." To handle the influx of orders, Sarah enlisted the help of her family and close friends. Together, they worked tirelessly to fulfill each request, ensuring that every item met her high standards. Despite the long hours, Sarah couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in her life, she felt truly seen. Not just as someone with a disability, but as a capable, creative individual whose contributions mattered. But Keanu didn't stop there. Recognizing the potential to turn this moment into lasting impact, he reached out to Sarah again, suggesting they collaborate on a project to promote her work and raise awareness about disability rights. Over Zoom calls and text messages, they brainstormed ideas, eventually settling on a plan to host a pop-up shop event featuring Sarah's crafts alongside products from other artists with disabilities. "I want to use my platform to shine a light on incredible creators like you," Keanu explained during one of their planning sessions. "This isn't just about selling scarves or coasters. It's about showing the world that creativity knows no boundaries." Sarah beamed at the idea. "That sounds amazing. I'd love to meet other artists and share our stories. It'll be like a celebration of who we are." With Keanu's support, the event came together quickly. Held in a trendy downtown venue, the pop-up shop drew massive crowds. Local news stations covered the event, interviewing Sarah and other participating artists about their journeys and aspirations. Shoppers lined up for blocks, eager to purchase unique handmade items while learning about the importance of inclusivity in the arts. Throughout the day, Keanu mingled with attendees, chatting with customers and posing for photos. But his presence wasn't just for show. He genuinely connected with everyone he met, listening intently to their stories and offering words of encouragement. When he finally took the stage to introduce Sarah, the crowd erupted into applause. "Today," Keanu began, his voice steady and heartfelt, "we're here to celebrate art, creativity, and the human spirit. Sarah has shown us that no obstacle is too great when you have passion and determination. She's not just an artist. She's a trailblazer, paving the way for others to follow their dreams. As Sarah stepped up to join him, tears welled up in her eyes, but these were tears of joy, pride, and gratitude. She waved to the cheering crowd, feeling a profound sense of belonging she'd never experienced before. In that moment, surrounded by supporters, fellow artists, and a friend who believed in her unconditionally, Sarah realized that her journey was far from over. If anything, it was just beginning. The pop-up shop marked a turning point, not just for Sarah but for the broader conversation about inclusivity and representation. Inspired by her story, several major retailers approached her about stocking her products in their stores. Art galleries invited her to exhibit her work alongside established artists. And perhaps most importantly, schools and community centers began reaching out, asking her to lead workshops and inspire young creators. Through it all, Keanu remained a steadfast ally, cheering her on from the sidelines. Their friendship blossomed into something deeper, a partnership built on mutual respect, shared values, and a commitment to making the world a better place. Together, they proved that even the smallest acts of kindness could spark monumental change, leaving an indelible mark on the lives of countless individuals. And for Sarah, the woman once humiliated at the bank, life had transformed in ways she never imagined possible. What started as a difficult day ended as a testament to the power of resilience, compassion, and the belief that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity. The days following the pop-up shop event were a whirlwind of activity for Sarah. The overwhelming success of the event had opened doors she never thought possible, and her life began to transform in ways that felt almost surreal. Orders for her handmade crafts continued to pour in from all over the world, with customers eager to support not just her work, but the message of inclusivity and empowerment it represented. Retailers who had once hesitated to take a chance on an unknown artist were now clamoring to feature her products in their stores. Galleries invited her to showcase her creations alongside established artists, and community centers reached out to ask if she'd be willing to teach workshops. But it wasn't just her business that was growing. Sarah herself was evolving. She found a newfound confidence, not just in her abilities as an artist, but also in her role as an advocate for people with disabilities. The viral video of Keanu standing up for her at the bank had sparked a global conversation about accessibility and respect, and Sarah realized she had a unique opportunity to contribute to that dialogue. With Keanu's encouragement, she began speaking publicly about her experiences, sharing her story at conferences, schools, and community events. Her first speaking engagement was nerve-wracking. It was held at a local high school during Disability Awareness Week, and Sarah couldn't shake the fear that she wouldn't be taken seriously. What could she, a woman who had faced so much doubt and judgment in her life, possibly offer to these students? But when she stepped onto the stage, clutching her notes tightly, she saw something unexpected. Faces filled with curiosity and admiration. As she began to speak, her voice trembled at first, but soon it grew stronger, more assured. "I've spent most of my life being told what I can't do," she said, looking out at the sea of young faces. "People looked at me and saw my disability before they saw me as a person. They assumed I couldn't run a business or manage money or create something beautiful. But here I am today, proving them wrong." She paused, letting her words sink. "First, I'm not special because I have Down syndrome. I'm special because I refuse to let anyone define me. And you can do the same. No matter what challenges you face, no matter how many times people tell you no, you have the power to say yes to yourself." The room erupted into applause, and Sarah felt a wave of emotion wash over her. For so long, she had doubted her worth, wondering if her efforts would ever be enough. But standing there, surrounded by people who believed in her, she realized that her journey wasn't just about proving others wrong. It was about inspiring others to believe in themselves. Word of Sarah's speeches spread quickly, and soon, she was receiving invitations to speak at larger venues. One particularly memorable event was hosted by a nonprofit organization dedicated to promoting inclusivity in the workplace. Sarah stood on a grand stage, illuminated by bright lights, addressing hundreds of attendees, including CEOs, HR professionals, and advocates for disability rights. Her talk focused on the importance of creating environments where everyone feels valued and respected, regardless of their background or abilities. When I walked into that bank that day, I didn't expect anything extraordinary to happen, she recounted. I just wanted to deposit a check. But what happened taught me something important. Kindness matters. Empathy matters. And we all have a responsibility to make sure no one feels invisible or unworthy. Her words resonated deeply, with the audience, many of whom approached her afterward to thank her for her courage and insight. Business leaders pledged to implement better training programs for their employees, while educators shared ideas for incorporating disability awareness into their curricula. Sarah left the event feeling hopeful, knowing that her story was sparking real change. Meanwhile, the bank where the incident had occurred was undergoing its own transformation. Under intense public scrutiny, the institution launched a comprehensive initiative aimed at improving accessibility and inclusivity. They partnered with disability advocacy groups to develop training modules for staff, focusing on empathy, communication, and understanding the needs of diverse customers. Chloe, the teller whose behavior had ignited the controversy, was eventually dismissed after an internal investigation confirmed her actions violated company policies. While some argued the punishment was too harsh, others felt it sent a clear message. Discrimination would not be tolerated. The bank also introduced new measures to ensure customers with disabilities received the support they needed. These included hiring dedicated accessibility coordinators, installing assistive technology at branches, and hosting regular workshops to educate employees about best practices. To hold themselves accountable, they published annual reports detailing their progress and inviting feedback from the community. Keanu remained a vocal supporter of these efforts, using his platform to highlight the importance of systemic change. In interviews and social media posts, he emphasized that while individual acts of kindness were crucial, true progress required structural reforms. Standing up for someone in the moment is important, he said during a podcast appearance. But we also need to address the root causes of discrimination and exclusion. That means listening to marginalized communities, learning from their experiences, and implementing policies that promote equity. His advocacy extended beyond Sarah's story. He became involved with several organizations working to advance disability rights, donating both time and resources to their causes. One project he championed was the creation of an online marketplace specifically designed to showcase products made by artists with disabilities. Modeled after Sarah's Etsy shop, the platform provided a space for creators to share their work with a wider audience, free from the barriers they often encountered elsewhere. For Sarah, seeing Keanu's continued dedication to the cause filled her with gratitude. Their friendship had grown even stronger over the months, rooted in mutual respect and a shared vision for a more inclusive world. They stayed in touch regularly, exchanging texts and meeting for coffee whenever Keanu's schedule allowed. During one such meeting, Sarah expressed her desire to expand her impact further. "I want to do more than sell scarves and blankets," she told him earnestly. "I want to help other people like me find their voices. Maybe start a foundation or something." Keanu smiled, nodding approvingly. "That's a great idea. You've already inspired so many people. You could take that inspiration and turn it into action. Let's figure out how we can make it happen." Together, they began laying the groundwork for what would eventually become the Sarah Thompson Foundation for Creative Empowerment. The organization's mission was simple yet powerful: to provide resources, mentorship, and opportunities for individuals with disabilities to pursue their passions, whether in art, entrepreneurship, or any other field. Through grants, workshops, and partnerships with businesses, the foundation aimed to break down barriers and foster a sense of belonging. As plans for the foundation took shape, Sarah reflected on how far she'd come since that fateful day at the bank. What had started as a humiliating encounter had blossomed into a movement, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the transformative power of kindness. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, moments when self-doubt crept back in, or when the weight of expectations felt overwhelming. But she also knew she wasn't alone. She had Keanu, her family, her friends, and a growing network of supporters who believed in her mission, and perhaps most importantly, she had herself. the same determination, creativity, and heart that had carried her through every obstacle thus far. As she sat in her cozy living room one evening, surrounded by yarn and knitting needles, Sarah felt a deep sense of peace. The road ahead was uncertain, but she was ready to face it head-on, one stitch at a time. The months that followed Sarah's rise to prominence were nothing short of transformative, not just for her, but for the countless lives she touched along the way. Her journey from a quiet woman struggling to be seen to a celebrated advocate for inclusivity and creativity became a beacon of hope for people around the world. The Sarah Thompson Foundation for Creative Empowerment officially launched 6 months after the viral incident at the bank, marking a new chapter in her life's mission. The foundation's launch event was held at a community center in downtown Los Angeles, a vibrant space filled with colorful murals, cozy seating areas, and tables showcasing artwork created by individuals with disabilities. The room buzzed with energy as attendees mingled, marveling at the diverse range of talents on display. Paintings, sculptures, knitted scarves, handcrafted jewelry, and even digital art lined the walls, each piece telling its own unique story of resilience and imagination. Keanu Reeves, who had played an instrumental role in helping Sarah bring her vision to life, stood near the entrance, greeting guests with his signature humility. He wore a simple black t-shirt and jeans, blending seamlessly into the crowd despite his fame. When reporters asked him about the foundation, he deflected attention back to Sarah. "This is her dream," he said with a warm smile. "I'm just here to support it." As the event began, Sarah took the stage, flanked by Keanu and a group of artists whose work was featured in the exhibition. Clutching the microphone tightly, she looked out at the audience, a mix of friends, family, supporters, and strangers, and felt a surge of gratitude. This moment, she realized, was the culmination of everything she'd fought for. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady despite the nerves fluttering in her chest. "When I started making crafts, I never imagined they would lead me here, to this incredible community of people who believe in the power of creativity and kindness." She paused, her eyes glistening with emotion. "For so long, I felt invisible. People saw my disability before they saw me. But today we're proving that everyone has a voice, and that voice deserves to be heard." Her words resonated deeply with the audience, many of whom nodded in agreement or wiped away tears. One attendee, a young girl with cerebral palsy who had been inspired by Sarah's story, approached the stage after the speech to thank her personally. "You've shown me that I can do anything I set my mind to," the girl said shyly, clutching a handmade scarf Sarah had gifted her earlier that day. "Thank you for believing in us." Moments like these reminded Sarah why she had poured her heart into building the foundation. It wasn't just about providing resources, it was about creating a sense of belonging, a safe space where individuals with disabilities could express themselves freely without fear of judgment. Through grants, mentorship programs, and partnerships with local businesses, the foundation helped aspiring artists turn their passions into careers. It also offered workshops on entrepreneurship, teaching participants how to market their products, manage finances, and navigate challenges unique to their circumstances. One of the foundation's early success stories was Marcus, a 20-year-old graphic designer with autism. Before joining the program, Marcus struggled to find employers willing to accommodate his needs. With guidance from the foundation, he learned how to create a professional portfolio, network effectively, and pitch his ideas confidently. Within months, he secured freelance contracts with several companies, including a major tech firm that commissioned him to design illustrations for their website. "I used to think no one would ever take me seriously," Marcus shared during a panel discussion hosted by the foundation. "But now I know my work speaks for itself. And I owe so much of that to Sarah and her team. They believed in me when others didn't." Stories like Marcus's fueled Sarah's determination to expand the foundation's reach. Over the next year, she traveled across the country, visiting schools, community centers, and conferences to spread awareness about the importance of accessibility and inclusion. Each trip brought new opportunities to connect with people, hear their stories, and inspire them to pursue their dreams. Whether she was speaking to a packed auditorium or sitting one-on-one with a struggling artist, Sarah approached every interaction with the same warmth and authenticity that had endeared her to so many. Keanu remained a steadfast ally throughout this journey, attending events whenever possible and using his platform to amplify the Foundation's message. He often joined Sarah on stage during fundraisers, sharing anecdotes about their friendship and urging donors to contribute to the cause. "What Sarah is doing isn't just changing individual lives, it's changing the world," he told a crowd during one such event. "And if we want to see real progress, we need to invest in initiatives like hers." Thanks to generous donations and sponsorships, the foundation grew rapidly, opening chapters in multiple cities and expanding its programs to include music, dance, and theater. Sarah's dream of fostering a global community of creators was becoming a reality, one step at a time. Amidst all the achievements and accolades, however, Sarah never lost sight of what truly mattered, staying true to herself. Despite her newfound fame, she continued to live simply, spending her days knitting, painting, and connecting with loved ones. Her cozy apartment remained a sanctuary filled with yarn, books, and mementos from her travels. On weekends, she volunteered at local shelters, teaching children how to knit and encouraging them to embrace their creativity. One evening, as she sat on her couch surrounded by unfinished projects, Sarah reflected on how far she'd come since that fateful day at the bank. What had once seemed like a moment of humiliation had ultimately led her to a life filled with purpose and joy. She thought about the people she'd met along the way: Keanu, whose kindness had changed her life, Marcus, whose talent inspired her daily, and the countless others who had reached out to share their stories of triumph and resilience. As she picked up her knitting needles and began working on a new scarf, Sarah smiled to herself. Life hadn't turned out the way she'd planned, not perfectly, not without challenges, but it had given her something far greater, the chance to make a difference. And for that, she was endlessly grateful. In the years to come, Sarah's legacy would continue to grow, touching the lives of generations to come. Her foundation would become a cornerstone of the disability advocacy movement, inspiring other organizations to adopt similar models. Artists supported by the foundation would go on to achieve international recognition, breaking barriers and redefining what it meant to be successful. And through it all, Sarah's unwavering belief in the power of kindness, creativity, and perseverance would serve as a guiding light for anyone daring to dream. Because sometimes, all it takes is one person standing up for another, or one act of courage, to spark a ripple effect that changes the world. For Sarah Thompson, that ripple had grown into a wave, carrying her and countless others toward a brighter, more inclusive future.